Long ago, deep within the mountains of ancient Korea, there lived a poor young woodcutter. Every day he climbed steep mountain paths and chopped firewood to sell in a nearby village. Though he worked from sunrise until sunset, he remained poor. The young woodcutter lived alone with his elderly mother, caring for her with love and devotion. Life was difficult, winter was cold, food was often scarce. Yet despite his hardships, he never lost his kindness. He harmed no one. He respected every living creature. His heart remained honest and pure. What he did not know was that his compassion would soon change his destiny forever. A remarkable journey was about to begin, one that would become one of Korea's most beloved folk tales. One day, while gathering firewood in the forest, the young woodcutter heard a desperate cry. Looking up, he saw a frightened deer bursting through the bushes and running directly toward him. The deer trembled with fear. Moments later, a hunter carrying a bow and arrows emerged from the forest, or quickly hid it behind a pile of rocks. Soon the hunter arrived. "Have you seen a deer run this way?" he asked. "Please save me," the deer seemed to plead, feeling pity for the helpless creature, the woodcutter. The woodcutter hesitated for a moment. Then he shook his head. "No." The hunter searched the area carefully, but found nothing. At last, he disappeared back into the forest. As soon as the hunter was gone, the deer stepped out from its hiding place. The deer lowered its head respectfully. "You have saved my life," it said. The woodcutter was astonished, for this was no ordinary deer. It possessed wisdom beyond that of any human. "I must repay your kindness," the deer said. Then it revealed an extraordinary secret. High in the mountains there was a hidden sacred pond. According to legend, heavenly maidens descended from the skies to bathe there. They rode upon colorful clouds and wore magical feather robes. Whenever they entered the water, they left those robes upon the shore. If one of those robes were hidden, the deer explained, the maiden who owned it would be unable to return to heaven. The woodcutter frowned. The idea felt wrong. Taking something that belonged to another seemed dishonest. But the deer persisted. "You have lived a lonely life. You care for your mother alone. If you marry a heavenly maiden, your loneliness will finally end." After much thought, the woodcutter agreed. The next day he climbed deep into the mountains and found the sacred pond. Soon a brilliant light filled the sky. Beautiful heavenly maidens descended upon colorful clouds. They removed their feather robes and entered the crystal-clear water. While they laughed and played together, the woodcutter quietly stepped forward. His heart pounded. His hands trembled. Carefully, he took one feather robe and hid it among the rocks. When the maidens finished bathing, they dressed and returned to heaven. All except one. A beautiful young maiden searched desperately along the shore. "My robe! Where is my robe?" Without it, she could not return to heaven. She had become trapped in the human world. The woodcutter finally revealed himself. At first, the maiden was frightened, but the young man treated her with kindness and respect. Over time, she came to trust him. Eventually, they married. Years passed. They had two beautiful children, a son and a daughter. Their small home became filled with laughter, warmth, and love. For the first time in his life, the woodcutter felt truly happy. Yet deep within her heart, the heavenly maiden still missed her home among the stars. Every night she gazed into the sky, wondering if she would ever see heaven again. Long ago, the deer had given the woodcutter one warning. Never return the feather robe until the children are fully grown. The woodcutter had promised. For many years he kept the robe hidden. But one day, seeing the sadness in his wife's eyes, his heart softened. At last, he brought her the hidden robe. "Try it on," he said. "I trust you." The moment the feather robe touched her shoulders, a brilliant light surrounded her. Her heavenly power instantly returned. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at her husband. Then she embraced her two children. Slowly, she began to rise toward the sky. "Please don't leave me," the woodcutter cried. But the heavenly maiden and the children disappeared into heaven. The woodcutter was left alone. One day the deer returned. It told him of a secret. On the night of the first full moon of the lunar year, a great bucket would descend from heaven to draw water from the sacred pond. The woodcutter waited. And sure enough, the heavenly bucket descended. Climbing inside, he rose to heaven and reunited with his wife and children. For a time, the family lived happily together, but eventually, the woodcutter worried about his elderly mother on earth. The heavenly maiden allowed him to visit her. She gave him a magnificent winged horse. "Whatever happens," she warned, "never dismount and never let your feet touch the ground." The woodcutter promised. He returned to earth and reunited with his mother. Overjoyed to see her son, she prepared his favorite meal, sweet red bean porridge. Determined to keep his promise, the woodcutter remained seated upon the winged horse while eating, but the bowl was scorching hot. Accidentally, he spilled the porridge onto the horse's back. Startled, the winged horse reared wildly. The woodcutter was thrown to the ground. Terrified, the horse soared back into heaven alone. The woodcutter collapsed in despair. Day after day, night after night, he cried out toward the sky, calling for his wife and children. According to legend, his sorrow transformed him into a rooster. That is why roosters still crow toward the heavens at dawn, forever longing for the family he lost, forever waiting for a reunion that will never come. And so, the story of the woodcutter and the heavenly maiden became one of Korea's most beloved folk tales. A story about compassion, a story about love and trust, and a story that reminds us that some worlds are never meant to remain together forever. Even today, when people gaze upon the stars, they remember the woodcutter who loved a heavenly maiden and the lonely cry of the rooster calling toward heaven. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next legend of Korea.